GameCadet here. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2 to 6 player game from Fantasy Flight, Game of Thrones, Westeros Intrigue. Game of Thrones, Westeros Intrigue, each turn you'll place out a card and create a pyramid, like so. You have to place it according to legal placement, of course, placing it on top of another yellow, if you have a yellow, or one of the same color. And towards the end of the game, you'll find that a lot of placements will become not able to be placed. See, this would be an illegal placement, me putting Joffrey in front of these two guys, because they're from the yellow family and the silver one, the Starks and the Baratheons. They can't mix with the Joffrey from his Lannister house. Anyhow, so that's pretty much what the game goes, how the game goes, and your goal is to not have a lot of cards at the end of the game, and for every card that you have penalty points that you get, and here's the penalty points. And if you are the last person to place a card, you get to draw one of these Game of Thrones cards. Okay, so you get to sit on the throne, and sometimes they give you minus points. Ooh, -3, that's really good. Or just -1 point. Okay, not so great. Okay, but lowest amount of swords gives you a tiebreaker bonus. Alright, so that is pretty much exactly how to play Game of Thrones. Strategy primer for Game of Thrones Westeros Intrigue. There are 4 families, and each family has 9 cards. Your first card that you play out each round should be the one that you have the most of, unless you're trying to be sneaky. Keep in mind that the other players at the table will be doing the same thing. That'll help them build off of their first played card to play another card of the same type, so they can quickly get rid of the cards they have the most of. Keeping this in mind is important for strategy, as you can block off players, especially players who are winning from previous rounds. Game of Thrones Westeros Intrigue was a fun experience. I like it. The cards are very simple. If you place out Joffrey, he's from the Red family, and you can place another Red family person on top of him. Boom. It's that easy. You want to place out all of your people in your hand, getting rid of cards. That's pretty good for beginners. They know, hey, I need to get rid of cards. Not too long for what it is, not too complex. The secret scoring is pretty cool. You've got those Iron Throne cards that could be -1 to even -3 points at the end of the game, and the goal is being you want lower points, like golf. You can't play this game in like a car. Normally when I look at these mini games, I think, oh, what's the possibility I could play this on a road trip, like Love Letter style, or something where I could play it while I'm waiting in line or something. This thing definitely couldn't do. In fact, it takes up a big chunk of the table because you have to place out all these cards lying out, okay? This thing takes up more space than Lost Cities. So I wish there were kind of powers with the game. Like Shay and Joffrey are two different people. They should have different effects, but yet they just have red goes on red ability. It's nothing else. But it's a simple game, and so it is good that they did that, but it doesn't add any extra flavor. These things could just be penguins being stacked on top of each other, and only by penguin colors. The theme could be placed anywhere. However, the theme does work for Game of Thrones, because very often you get these scenarios where Joffrey will be here, and some other red people will be around, and you can't place somebody like Jon Snow because the pyramid's getting smaller, and they're not going to allow somebody to be sitting on top of this throne who is not of their family. Very, close to what I believe the theme is for Game of Thrones. I haven't watched very many of those episodes, to be honest. The theme actually works for it. It's a little bit random. You could be dealt 6 yellow cards. Somebody else could be dealt 2 yellow cards, and they're going to have a lot easier of a time where you have to get rid of all these yellow cards. They're going to kind of notice every turn that he plays a yellow, all right, because you want to slowly diminish all of your cards. You can kind of trick people and be like, oh no, I don't even need to get rid of my yellows, but that'll come back to bite you later on in the game, as the pyramid gets smaller and smaller, and you run out of choices. So ultimately, I'm going to give this a sleepy emoji. Okay, not bad, not the best thing, but I will say, thinking about your friends here. Okay, if you have friends who like Game of Thrones, and they're not very big into board games, but they want to get into it, and you want to help them on that journey, you want to place a gate and think of the perfect game to push them through that gateway, and you know it needs some Game of Thrones spice, it's not going to be any other game than Game of Thrones Westeros Intrigue. I'll tell you that much. If they have no gaming experience, Game of Thrones board game, Game of Thrones Cosmic Encounter, whatever, all that stuff, that's not going to be for them at the start. You're going to want something that's very basic, and this is it. So that's what your friends need. Check it out, Game of Thrones Westeros Intrigue.